Today we're going to talk about a battle of worldviews, a possible new presidential contender. Warren Buffett weighs in on the national debt, and Ron DeSantis panders to college football fans. Stay tuned, everybody. For the best meat you have ever eaten in your life, go to samsbutchershop.com. Enter the coupon code TTT when you check out for a 10% discount. Hello, everybody. Trailer Trash Tim. Good to see you. I'm glad you all are here with me today. Been a while, right? Let me just get it out of the way real quick. Folks, I have been utterly swamped with my job, and I've just had almost no free time whatsoever to devote to the channel. I apologize, but I'm back and I'm doing the best I can. Going forward, I'll just tell you, I don't know if I can keep up such a rigorous schedule as I did before, but I'll do what I can, and I'll put out whatever content that I can, and I appreciate you bearing with me and joining in with me today. I just want to kind of spitball, as we say, and talk about a few things that are on my mind, and I can't cover everything. There's so much going on in the news, but these things are really on my mind, and I wanted to cover them today if I can. But I want to start with this. I recently read a speech that was given. I read the entire speech. It was rather lengthy, and it was a speech, and I don't want to read the whole speech because of time's sake, but it was a, make sure my mic is on. Yeah, it is. It was a speech given by the president, not the American president. It was a speech given by President Putin in Russia at a recent big event. And I want to cover in general some of the things he was talking about in that speech, and I want to contrast that with what you hear from American political leaders, our own occupant of the White House. It makes my skin crawl to refer to Biden as the president, and it has ever since he took office. So I just have a problem with that. So, hey, what can I tell you? I can't go into all this speech, but what really struck me is in this lengthy speech, which I read. And by the way, if you wanted to read it, which I wish every American would, just for giggles sometime, try and go on the internet and find copies, if you will, or find where Putin's speeches are online. And if you're in the West, good luck with that, because the powers that be in the West don't want you to hear what this man has to say. They just want you to stick to the dominant media narrative of Putin and of Russia, which is at great variance with the truth. But of course, as I have maintained, we get our information from a very select and elite group of people who control the Western media. And so you have to dig for the truth, and I hope that you do, because the truth is everything. If we don't have truth, we don't have anything. But in this speech, Putin gave, which I eventually found, I had to jump through hoops on the internet to get to it, but I found it. It is amazing to me when you contrast what he's saying in his speeches with what you would hear really any American president say, pretty much, certainly Joe Biden. But Putin in this speech continued to promote morality in his nation. And he told the Russian people in this speech, in no uncertain terms, what we need to do is protect our families, our nuclear families. And he defined the families as a husband and a wife. And he said we need to begin to promote more and more the idea of men and women marrying and starting families and having lots of children. He said in this speech we need to be having big families. He said big families are the cornerstone of a good society, is in essence what he was saying. And that really got to me to thinking, because when you contrast what the Russian president is saying with what the American president would say, it is like 180 degrees in the opposite direction. And we live, ladies and gentlemen, in such a culture in the West of death. And I don't want to get bogged down on the topic of, it begins with A and ends with abortion, but that's where our focus is in the West, certainly with the current American president. You hear more about that word, the killing of children, shall we say, from this American president than you would hear him calling for traditional American families with a lot of children. But that's what the Russian president is calling for. Do you realize in the West we are in a decline of population in many areas, and it is because of this emphasis on the culture of death. And you know, when you see families in the West that have a lot of children, you kind of look at them and think, man, what's wrong with these people? I mean, it's like the norm now to not get married and to not have children, or to only have one or two children. But do you know, in our not so distant history in America, that wasn't the normal thing? I remember both of my grandparents on both sides of my family. They married at a young age and they had lots of children. My paternal grandmother gave birth to 14 children, one of which was my father. And that was the norm. It was the norm to get married and have lots of children, big families, and that was good. It was a good thing. But we frown on that anymore in the West. We think it's an odd thing for people to get married and have lots of children. And here's Putin saying, this is what we need to do. We need our young people to get married and have lots of children and build our families. Do you know that's how societies grow, and in a good way? When you put the emphasis on traditional morality, husbands and wives, getting married and having lots of children, this should be the norm, I maintain, and that's what Putin is saying. Now you tell me, who makes more sense, Putin or Biden? Who would you rather have as a president, Putin or Biden? Now if you listen to the prevailing narrative from the Western media, you would recoil and say, wait a minute, Putin's a bad guy. Everybody knows Russia's a bunch of communists. Well, it's a lie. It's simply a lie. And it's a lie that is propagated by or promulgated by the Western media. Putin is calling for the restoration of the family, the husbands and wives and lots of children. Biden is promoting the exact opposite. We'll do anything we can to promote the murder of children. And that really struck me. You know, it really struck me that we are just so backwards in our country. Now, look, I know that not everybody wants to get married. I understand that. And marriage isn't for everybody. But it should be the norm that young people grow up and seek to enter into marriage if they so choose. Now, some don't want to get married, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that either. But it should be the norm among those who seek to get married, that they get married and they start to procreate and have lots of children and establish their families. And you may say, well, wait a minute, it's so expensive anymore, and I understand that too. And of course, we have structured our tax code in such a way that, you know, it almost penalizes people who want to get married and have big families. It's so immoral. It's so backwards. It really is. But it's something to think about, you know, to have one president saying, let's build big families, and another president saying, let's promote the killing of children. Which one is more virtuous in your world? What do you think? I think that the country that promotes traditional forms of morality and that promotes the concept of big families, that country has a future, if you ask me. Obviously, because if men and women, young men and women, get married and start having a lot of kids, that country's got a future, don't you think? Something to think about. All right, let's move on. We have a possible new entrant into the presidential beauty contest, the old presidential sweepstakes. Not as a Republican and not as a Democrat, as a third-party candidate, possibly. Who would that person be, Triple T? Well, that would be good old Liz Cheney. That's right. We just can't get rid of this woman. It's like a cockroach. You stamp them out and you think, well, that ends the cockroach problem, but she just won't go away, regardless of what Wyoming voters told her. She just won't go away. She's got a book out now called Oath and Honor, which is laughable. You talk about cognitive dissonance. This woman's got a bad case of it. But she just won't go away. But amazingly to me, her book, Oath and Honor, is #1 on the Amazon bestseller list. I don't know if it's New York Times or not, but it's #1. I don't expect it to stay there long, but I'm appalled somewhat that it even made it there in the first place. But Liz Cheney is toying and teasing us with a potential third-party run. And to that, I can only say, you know what, Liz, run. Run, because I would love nothing more than to see you suffer yet another defeat, which you would. But of course, as I've explained before, these people run for the presidency knowing they won't win. So why do they do it? Well, they do it to raise their profiles and to raise cash, because there's a lot of money in running for political office. It's just sleazy. It's disgusting. And she's just so misguided. She's just so... She's pathetic. And she says that our democracy is at risk. Hey, Liz, you might want to go take a civics class, sweetheart. We don't have a democracy. I think you probably know that. But of course, Liz Cheney is one of these people who's full of venom for people like Donald Trump, but she just can't bring herself to criticize a Democrat to save her life. Odd, don't you think? I mean, with Republicans like that, who needs Democrat? I know she's not a Republican anymore, but she was a Republican. She's just shameful. She's disgusting, and I wish she would just go away. But Liz Cheney is in love with the attention. She's in love with the TV camera. She's in love with outlets like MSNBC and NBC and News Nation, and I guess Fox, who are more than happy to put her on camera and listen to her bleat like a sheep. Liz, just go away. I'm not going to read your book. I don't know anybody's going to vote for you, but just take the money you got from your book advance and just go away, would you? Go to China, for heaven's sakes. All right. Ron DeSantis has pledged $1 million of his campaign money to battle an injustice. And what is the injustice we're talking about? Well, this has to do with college football. Now, stay tuned. I'm not getting so much into sports because this story really isn't about sports, but I have to cover a little bit of sports to give some context to what DeSantis has planned. This past weekend, if you're a college football fan, as I am, it was what was called championship weekend. A lot of the conferences in college football had their championship games, like the ACC and the SEC and the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and so forth. I got my heart broken Saturday night because my beloved Georgia Bulldogs played the Alabama Crimson Tide in Atlanta for the SEC championship, and we lost. And we lost by a score of 27-24. Now, Georgia was #1 in the nation, but with that loss, we fell all the way to #6. And Alabama, who was #8, climbed all the way to #4 and made the 4-team college football playoff. Now, that's important to give context to this story. At the end of the college football season, which is where we are now, there's a playoff committee that in theory selects the 4 best teams to go into a 4-team playoff. And the committee selected the University of Michigan, they selected the University of Texas, they selected the University of Washington, and the University of Alabama. That is their top 4. And all the other college football teams are just SOL. They're just out of luck, including my Bulldogs. And coming in at #5 and out of the playoff committee's consideration was Florida State University, which finished the season 13-0, undefeated. Georgia had been undefeated. They lost their first game to Alabama on Saturday night, and they got taken out of the playoffs. Now, the working theory is, or what we are told by the playoff committee is, we're going to select the best 4 teams in the country to go into this 4-team playoff. Now, I'm a little sore about it because I maintain that even with a loss to Alabama, Georgia is still one of the best 4 teams in college football. But they didn't get picked, and there's nothing we can do about it other than whine and cry. So it is what it is. But there was such a uproar and a furor in Tallahassee, Florida, the home of Florida State University, because they finished their season undefeated, yet they got shut out of the college football playoff. And incidentally, they're going to be playing Georgia in the Orange Bowl on December 30th, I believe it is, in the Kissing Your Sister Bowl. But there's such an uproar at the snub over FSU being excluded that good old Governor Ron DeSantis saw this as an opportunity for him to make hay. And he has pledged $1 million of his DeSantis campaign money to fight this injustice in court. And there's going to be a lawsuit now. And we're going to sue, I guess, the playoff committee with his campaign money to fight this injustice, because he's saying FSU should have been inducted into the playoff. They should have been included in the 4-team playoffs. And this is an outrage. It is an injustice. And I'm thinking, it's college football, buddy. But what's happening here, is DeSantis is simply pandering, trying to score points because his campaign is so dead. He's doing anything he can do to curry favor with at least FSU fans anyway. He's looking for anything, in my opinion, to jumpstart his campaign. This is just so silly. By the way, did anybody watch the DeSantis-Newsom debate? Newsom looked like the blithering, blundering fool that he is, but whatever the case. This is just nothing but pandering. It's going nowhere. He may get the attention of FSU fans, I don't know, but it's not going to help him nationally whatsoever. Ron, dude, spend your $1 million somewhere else. I mean, really? You know, the fact of the matter is, DeSantis is going to turn out well. He's not going to get the nomination, and he knows it. He got a multi-million-dollar deal, a book deal. He's got plenty of money. He's got plenty of campaign cash. When it's all said and done and he eventually gets out of the race, as he will do, old Ron's going to have quite the impressive war chest, and he'll be able to live comfortably from now on. What his political future is, I don't know. Maybe he'll get a job in a future possible Trump administration. I don't know. I doubt it. I wouldn't hire him, but we'll see what happens. The bottom line is he's not going to be hurting for cash. All right, one more story. Warren Buffett made a statement. Actually, he made the statement in the year 2011, but it's gotten some traction here in the last few days, and it's been picked up by some news services, and it's making the rounds again, and it's quite an impressive quote from the multi-billionaire Warren Buffett. And this is what he said, quote, "This is concerning our national debt." And the headline I read is, "Warren Buffett's plan to eliminate the debt in 5 minutes." Now, I like this idea. Tell me what you think about it. Quote from Warren Buffett. Here we go. "I could end the deficit in 5 minutes. You just pass a law that says that anytime there is a deficit of more than 3% of the gross domestic product of the GDP, all sitting members of Congress are ineligible for re-election," unquote. I can dig that. That sounds good to me. Anytime that there's a deficit of more than 3% of the GDP, no sitting member of Congress is eligible for re-election. Now, this is myopic, pie in the sky. It's fantasy. It's almost clown world stuff. Because they would have to pass the law. The people this would affect would have to pass that law, right? Which they're never going to do. It's like expecting Congress to say no to a pay raise. You know, they get to vote themselves a pay raise. How many of you would like to vote yourselves a pay raise? That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? You know, members of Congress have it made. Once they get into Congress, they not only get a great salary and all the perks that come from being in Congress, and of course they get money from lobbyists, not officially, but They get money from lobbyists. And, of course, when they finally leave Congress, they're set for life. They're not subject to the same laws you and I are subject to. They're not subject to Obamacare. They get their own private insurance. They get their salaries. They get their pensions. They're set for life. So, they're never going to do anything which damages that. By the way, the only sitting member of Congress I know of who said no to the congressional pension, can you guess who that would be? Anybody want to guess? He left Congress a few years back, and he said no to the pension. That would be the only man of principle I can think of that's been in Washington politics in 20 years. That would be Ron Paul. No to the pension. Keep your money. Keep the taxpayers' money. God bless that man. Idea, don't you? If the GDP is if the deficit is more than 3% of the GDP, you can't be reelected. I can dig it. I like that idea a lot. It kind of goes in line with Vivek Ramaswamy's idea. You remember that? Vivek Ramaswamy, this is the thing that made me really warm up to good old Vivek. He said his first day in office, I fire 50% of the federal workforce. Buddy, I stood up and started applauding when I heard that. I listened to what Matt Walsh had to say about that, and Matt Walsh said, yeah, I like it, but why stop there? Let's go for 20. He said, why not 90%? Makes sense to me. Can any of you tell me of anything that any bureaucrat is doing or elected official is doing, any Washington-based federal bureaucrat or employee is doing to make your life better? Remember what Reagan said? The thing you never want to hear? Hello, I'm here from the federal government and I'm here to help. That's okay. Our lives would be better if we fired 50% or 90% of the federal bureaucracy. We simply don't need these people. Did you know the richest subdivisions in the world are places like Arlington and Fairfax and Roanoke and Landover, places that surround the Beltway? The richest people in the world live outside the Beltway. That should tell you something, should it not? How is it that people, contractors for the CIA, how is it they're buying homes for $12 million freaking dollars? How is that? How do you feel about that? It is outrageous. So I like Buffett's idea and I like Vivek's idea. Both really good ideas. That's what's going on. Everybody, give me your comments down below about what we talked about today. I'd really love to hear from all of you guys and gals. I really would. How about do me a big favor? Give me a thumbs up for this video down below. Hit that thumbs up button. And subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate that very much if you joined in and subscribed to the Trailer Trash Tim channel. Everybody go out there. Have a great day. I'm doing my best, guys, to get back into regular postings on my channel. Bear with me, please. And I will see you very soon. Everybody hang in there. This is Trailer Trash Tim, and I'll see you soon.